Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great. Living life to the fullest, business is good, and everything's moving along. How about yourself, Raphael?
Cannot complain. Business is doing well. Just picked up a new listing and just working on trying to get things squared away on various different fronts. So really, really great day. And this weekend, a good buddy of mine's coming into town. So should be fun on that front as well.
Absolutely. Well, with that excitement coming up, I just wanted to say that our next guest on the podcast here, Logan Hartle, tons and tons of knowledge about industrial commercial real estate. He was an engineer and then decided to jump into commercial real estate. It's one of the things that he's very intrigued by. You can tell he's passionate about. It's the direction that he wanted to go in all the commercial avenues, and it's the industrial real estate sector. And he's takes his analytical mind as an engineer and breaks down things in this episode about industrial commercial real estate that he enjoys doing. Do you have anything to add, Raphael?
He's an impressive guy. And really, I mean, it's amazing what he's been able to do in such a short period of time. He actually moved to his market, I believe, December of 2020. And since then, he's built a significant pipeline from a brokerage perspective. And, he's been investing in commercial real estate, primarily in the industrial space for quite some time. He was an owner user of an industrial space and then sold his business and then got into, the investing side for industrial real estate. But I mean, in the podcast episode, we talked about, him making the switch from engineering to commercial real estate brokerage, which is something that I did as well. And I get asked a lot about. So hearing his response to that was kind of intriguing. He also explained a little bit about ways to analyze different industrial opportunities. Again, it's going to be specific. It's going to be different from a brokerage perspective versus a investor's perspective. And then at the end, we kind of touched on, advice he would give to someone who's looking to get into the business, primarily on the investment front, and where he sees the industrial real estate market going over the next 5 to 10 years. So a lot of great insights that he provided. He's going to be a big player in this industry long term, and we're just really excited to have him be our guest. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. Welcome, Logan. Excited to see you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you. And I think we got connected. I can't remember exactly how we got connected, but, I started doing a little bit of research on you. I think it was Chad, actually. Chad Griffiths is actually.
Yep.
Yeah, he's an awesome dude. For those of you guys who don't know who he is, he was one of I think he's our first podcast episode. But he does a lot of industrial real estate content on YouTube. And, we just connected through being YouTube creators for commercial real estate. And we've kind of kept in contact ever since. And he recommended you highly. And I did a little bit of research on you, and I can see why. But we're really excited to host you today and learn a little bit more about your story.
Thank you. Yeah, Chad's a great dude. I've got a group that's kind of a meetup networking group that we have guests come in every once in a while. And Chad was one of the guests, and we kind of got connected there. So, but great dude.
No, he really is. Yeah. And we don't hold the fact that he's Canadian against him. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, he's really an awesome guy. But so really, when we first start these episodes, what we really like to learn about is a little bit about the person that we're sitting across the table from. So if you don't mind, could you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah. So grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia area, small little town about an hour outside of Pittsburgh. Lived there for my whole life. Went to West Virginia University, studied industrial engineering. During that time, I did a couple internships, in manufacturing. Got out of the school, spent about 10 years in manufacturing. The last 5 of that, I purchased a manufacturing company with some partners of mine. We recently sold that. Well, gosh, it's been 2 years now. We sold that and kept the real estate. So the buyer of that company didn't want the real estate. They just wanted the company. It's a manufacturing plant. So we have that in our portfolio. But yeah, so throughout that time, gotten interested in investing when I was 18 years old. I think just like about everybody, read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it kind of, it's the oldest investor story ever. You read that book, it changes your mind, and now all of a sudden you can't stop thinking about it. So I tell everybody that I probably spent more time studying real estate and real estate investing than I did studying engineering, even though I have my engineering degree, just because I was fascinated by it. So I came up through college and had a couple businesses in college. After college, again, the last 5 years of my tenure there in manufacturing were as an owner. And then I got my brokerage license because I'd been buying, properties for myself, mostly duplexes and things like that. Recently, and in the last year or so, sold all of those off, and I'm now rolling that money into predominantly just the industrial space. So I've got a couple partners and we're looking for either sale leaseback or value add industrial space. So that's kind of a timeline.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a fellow industrial engineer. I actually studied industrial engineering and economics in college. So it's kindred spirits here. That's awesome.
There you go. Yeah, it's actually, it's weird because I told my wife, when I started moving into the brokerage world and I was just fascinated with engineering, there was a large chunk of my life where I was like, did I just waste all that time going to industrial engineering school when I really want to be in real estate? And now on the back end, I'm an industrial real estate broker, and it's invaluable, the experience that I've had in that space. So everything works out. So,
dude, of course. And I did industrial engineering in college and then got into software. So I did software consulting for about 5 years, and same type of logic. It's like, people ask me all the time, it's like, why did you make that transition? But I mean, the skills that I gained through that experience has been immensely helpful as I've transitioned into the brokerage side of things. So I know we'll dive into that a little bit later to kind of get your thought process on that, but just wanted to share that.
For sure. Very cool.
I kind of wanted to dive in more into the commercial real estate aspect. What really, was there an aha moment for you that you're like, hey, commercial real estate? Or was there an exact thing that was like, okay, now I'm completely interested in commercial real estate. Now I'm going down this path?
I think it was a mixture of seeing after we sold the business and leased out the property, I had spent countless hours studying, how to make pro formas, financial modeling, just for fun, just on my own. I used to pull properties off of CoStar and just do that, just to kind of crunch the numbers on it, just because. And so, because I'm a nerd, because I'm an engineer, right? So, anyway, it was always kind of there. Always kind of had that feeling that I wanted to transition there one day. And then it was right around the time we sold that business and leased it out. And I still had a few properties that were residential. And I saw the difference between managing an industrial single tenant property and managing toilets and tenants. And I said, I'm done. I'm done with the residential side. I'm going full in commercial, not looking back. I don't want anything to do with residential tenants. And I've not looked back since. So.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point. I have a fourplex right now that I'm dealing with, and it's just like, sometimes I'm just like, why am I still holding it? But I think everyone comes to that realization for themselves, and residential can be a phenomenal investment opportunity, 100%. And definitely not trying to dissuade anyone from getting into that route. But I agree with you in the sense that there's a lot more. I don't know. I just have a lot more interest in the commercial space as well. So it's always kind of interesting to hear how people came to that realization on their own. So.
Yeah. And I think I like a lot the concept in commercial where I feel like I have a lot more control over the asset. And what I mean by that is I feel like I can go in and it's a lot more numbers based. It's not, how well did you fix up the kitchen and how, what does it look like compared to the other houses? It's do you have the right tenant? Did you sign the right lease? Did you get it? You can affect the things essentially a lot more, at least from my perspective, you can. And I like that it's more numbers based.
100%. And the tenants are completely different too. And, the business tenants versus just tenants that are in a residential setting, or, what they want or what they need, or, their desires are going to be completely different. And typically I imagine you're not getting calls at 12 at night to have to unclog a toilet when someone flushes flushable wipes down the toilet. So that's always a great call to receive. But
so, I've had several of those.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So you mentioned having the engineering background, similar to me. We're kind of kindred spirits in that front, but what made you switch? Because that's a question I get asked all the time. It's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you go from, the engineering route, which, most people say, oh, that's like a great profession to go into. Sure. Why go from there into, a commercial real estate brokerage, which is a strictly commission-based business that it's pretty much eat what you kill, which is very different from what you would learn in an engineering setting.
Yeah. I think it kind of does go back to just that reading books early about entrepreneurship and just wanting that and knowing what I wanted in life. And I've always looked at industrial engineering as something that, I hate to say it like that, but like a fallback, but almost like, look, this is a base that's going to help me build some capital and build some credibility to get into entrepreneurship. And I know at some point along the line, I'm going to be an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. That was my thought process when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And so, I always knew that. I always knew that's what I wanted. I very entrepreneurial family. And just, I think I kind of have a little bit of sales kind of bred into me. My dad's been a salesperson his whole life, and it just kind of fit. I never really thought I would be a salesperson, as an engineer, and a spreadsheet guy and things like that. But, and I think that's again, why the commercial side, kind of tugs at my heartstrings a little bit more too, is because from a sales perspective, I get to use my analytical brain and I get to talk to customers about that side of it, which is what they're more interested in. The customers don't care how nice the decal on the back of my car looks, and they don't care how pretty my website makes their kitchen look. They care that I can get in contact with the right buyers or the right sellers. They care that I can run the numbers and I can sell their asset. And that's a whole different mentality. And I think that tugged at me a lot. So it just kind of was a merger of everything. It was a realization that there's a lot of people out there I can help. I do think, especially in the industrial space, there's not a lot of people marketing themselves very well. The brokers tend to be, the old stalwarts of the industry, and there's a lot of low hanging fruit to be had there. So I think I can kind of bring a young new flavor to that aspect of it, while also providing, a pretty solid base of industrial knowledge. Most of my career was in manufacturing. So I've been around these buildings my whole life. And so I feel like I had a great opportunity to go to the market and start something entrepreneurial for myself that still played very well into my skill set that I had developed over the last 10 or 15 years.
100%. Yeah. And I'll even add something real quick with your background too, is having the empathy from an owner user's perspective, because you utilize these warehouses, you utilize those types of buildings. So when you're talking to a landlord who owns a building, maybe they're a business owner that operates their business within that facility, their pain points, you understand it, because now you can talk to back when I did XYZ, this is what some of the pain points were for me. And the fact you were operating within that sphere for as long as you did, you can provide that unique perspective to that other individual. And I'll echo the fact that you mentioned regarding, marketing. I feel like this industry is ripe for opportunity as far as, marketing yourself in a digital setting. We talked about, you were recently on Tyler Cobble's live stream, and he's been doing a killer job of marketing himself on YouTube and LinkedIn, all these other places. And, he's going to be a big deal going forward. And as a result, and again, there's just not many people doing it. So if you become one of those people that can actively market yourself in various different mediums, whether that's podcasting or YouTube or meetups like you're doing, which we'll talk about at the end of the podcast. Sure. I mean, I dude, the sky's the limit. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think so. There's a ton of low hanging fruit.
So you spoke earlier about industrial background. Was that the main reason that you chose industrial real estate, or was it something else? Or, why did you decide to focus on that when there's so many other avenues to
a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Okay.
I tend to be very distractible person. So I like the fact that in my brokerage world and in my investing world, I only have to call one group of people. I only have to focus on one group of due diligence, one type of, tenant class, if you will. So I like that I can hyper focus on that. But I do also like the fact that it tends to be, triple net leases. I love that. I love that they tend to be long-term. Triple net, allows me to, if we get a deal, we can put a tenant in there and move on, and go find another one. And it feels scalable in that regard. And I like that about it. And I think it's a mixture, a combination of the fact that, I have the experience and I do like kind of the mechanics of that class.
Yeah, I know for sure. And industrial has been performing extremely well through COVID. It's just been crazy. I mean, industrial maybe even be outperforming multifamily, and multifamily is what everyone's kind of been talking about as far as like, some of the growth in asset prices. But I feel like here locally in Kentucky, there's this big industrial park called the Bluegrass Industrial Park, and there's like a 3% vacancy rate. So it's like trying to find some space in that location is next to impossible. And I'm sure in your market, it's probably, I don't know if it's similar or not, but I can imagine it is. So
Most of my clients that are buyer side are private equity companies, hedge funds, REITs that when I talk to them, they've even stopped, or not necessarily stopped, but they've transitioned a lot of their acquisition criteria away from buying assets that are existing, and they want to buy 75 to 100 acres to develop industrial parks. And it's all of them want to do that. And there's so much growth that is happening. And as everything transitions from brick and mortar to e-commerce, there's just more and more and more needed. And so there's a wave coming that's still coming, and it's going to continue to perform well, based on all the indicators.
Yeah. And to support, I just took a class recently, a CCIM 102, actually, where we talked about some of this stuff, but per person in the market, you need like 1.7 square feet of warehouse space. So if you extrapolate that out within a 1 million square foot warehouse, like in order to service a particular city, like you need so much space in order to service the needs of from an e-commerce perspective. When we're talking about developing a property, typically the land ratio to building ratio has to be at least, I think, 50%. So if you're talking about a 1 million square foot building, an acre of land is like 43,000 square feet. So in order for you to achieve a 1 million square foot building, you're talking 50 acres at minimum. To be able to develop, so you're talking 100 plus acres, then you start getting into the territory of developing like industrial parks and stuff like that. And it's pretty super interesting, really.
Yeah.
So when you're looking, one of the things I'm curious about is obviously different property types require different types of analytics as far as analyzing different opportunities. So what are some of the things that you look at with industrial opportunities, whether that's on the investment side or on the brokerage side?
Yeah. So brokerage is a little different. So brokerage, if somebody calls and says, "Hey, I've got this property and I need your help," you kind of help them figure it out. As long as it fits in my lane, then I'm usually willing to help folks out. I've not reached the status where I'll turn down anything under $10 million to list yet or anything like that. So maybe one day. But from the investment side, my partners and I are looking primarily for value add opportunities. Be that an opportunity where part of a warehouse is leased out. Let's say it's 50,000 square feet and only 20,000 is occupied. I like to have at least some income coming in there for financing, but also just so I can sleep at night. So I like to see opportunities that do have room to expand and room to grow, whether that be to park trucks, whether that be to expand on the warehouse, or be to essentially chop it up into smaller sections and take a 50,000 square foot space and rent it out to 5 different tenants. A lot of people don't want to do that, but that's something where you can now increase your rent per square foot. Your NOI goes through the roof, and there you go. You just created some value. That's probably about 1/3 of what we're looking for. 2/3 would be some pretty more stable assets. It would be the sale leaseback is kind of more the stable side of what we're looking for. And for those who don't know what that is, it's essentially a business that also owns the property, still needs to operate their business out of that property, but wants to cash in on their equity to reinvest in their business. So they'll sell the property and lease it back from the new owner for any number of years at whatever terms you negotiate. So
100%. Yeah. And my brokerage was actually one of my brokers was involved in a sale leaseback transaction several years ago for a dentist where they owned the building and they wanted to, lease it out, and utilize that money to now do other things as far as expanding their operations are concerned. And, obviously the medical industry, especially dentists, they tend to stay put for a long period of time. So, that can be a very attractive opportunity for a lot of people. So,
yeah. And it's weird because, as an investor, as a real estate investor, you think, why would they not want to own the real estate? But from their perspective, a couple of things. Usually it's either they're going to reinvest that money back into their business. So, let's say it's a $3 million property and you think, okay, I can reinvest that $3 million into my business and it's going to make me $1 million a year. And that's okay that I'm paying $200,000 in rent because I'm making an extra $1 million a year. So they'll look at it that way. Or, there's scenarios where somebody is, maybe they're 55, 60 years old. They're getting closer to retirement and they say, I'm going to work for another 10 years, but I want to take this money now. And the market's doing really well. I'm going to cash out, put that into my investment account. And then 5 years from now, that's going to be a lot bigger. And I'm going to, at least cash out now and I'll work for the next 5 or 10 years and try to sell my business. So I see that happening as well.
Oh, for sure. And probably even buying out partners and stuff. That could be a situation if you wanted to buy out a partner for some reason, or, could be, there's various different reasons why that would be the case, but that's awesome. So go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, no worries. So we're talking about the past on industrial and the present here. So let's look into the future for you. Where do you see the industrial real estate moving in, say, next 5-10 years from now? Like,
I think you're going to see a lot more distribution. You're going to see a lot more warehouse distribution. There's a lot of people talking about, shopping malls being converted into more warehouse space, or even in the retail space, they're toying with, conversion of utilizing the retail spaces as last mile delivery, last mile distribution. So I think you'll see a lot of that happening. On the larger scale distribution, it's going to continue to grow as people start to transition from brick and mortar to buying stuff online, everything from toilet paper to dish soap to whatever. People are just, if you can click it on Amazon and then go back about your day, and then it comes to your door sometimes the same day now. I mean, it's insane. The more that happens, the more warehouse space you're going to need. So that's going to grow. But, I know in a lot of industries, I spent some time when I was in West Virginia with the West Virginia Manufacturers Association. We had a stat there. It was about 1 to 6. So for every manufacturing job that was created or industry job that was created, there's about 6 other support jobs that were needed to support that. So you see that and to some degree or another in manufacturing and distribution. So whether that be a company that needs to supply boxes or safety equipment or so on and so forth. So it's not just these big distribution facilities that need a large 40-foot ceiling height warehouse space, but there's a lot of support companies now that need to come in, and they need, 5,000 square feet, and it doesn't have to be this huge distribution facility. So some of the older buildings that can be retrofit for their needs are going to be, in demand as well. So I think as it grows, it's just it's going to grow. And because it grows, it's going to grow. And then because it grew, it's going to grow again. So it just feels like it's going to expand upon itself, so.
Yeah, and I'll even echo the idea that the support jobs. I mean, that's huge for local economy. I mean, we just received a huge investment from Ford Motor Company regarding some battery technology that they're going to be developing here in Kentucky, and it's going to be just south of Louisville, which we're located right now, and it brings 5,000 jobs. So imagine if you have 5,000 manufacturing jobs that are considered basic jobs, meaning that they bring money into the economy outside of the local economy, you're talking maybe an economic impact of 25 or 30,000 jobs. So that's huge for an area. So, and I'll even echo on that on the retail. I love the cross section of retail and industrial, because you're 100% right. Last mile delivery within a metro market, especially now that people are demanding products a lot faster, it's becoming a lot more expensive for these larger companies in order to be able to deliver the product on time and within a budget range. So utilizing some of those retail storefronts to be that kind of last mile delivery to kind of lower some of those costs is going to happen. It's a trend that's been operating within the large urban centers, and it's going to permeate to tertiary markets and everything else. And then also the utility of having a storefront, like, being able to see because there's utility in having 40,000 cars a day, seeing your logo, as you're driving by. So a lot of these industrial companies or really online companies are realizing that has utility. And so being able to, if you own an old shopping center that you can now convert into some sort of like last mile delivery checkpoint, I mean, that could be a huge opportunity for you as an investor.
Absolutely. And you think about how people buy too. Like you said, you can get there, not just see it, but you can get your hands on it, feel it. And a lot of people, it would do that. You want to try on a shirt before you buy it, try it on, you try it on in 5 different places, and you go home and order it online. I mean, that happens all the time. So it's, in that same store could then ship it out to you, and they're trying to, it's that give the customer what they want, understand how they're operating. And, that's just more of a, obviously clothing setting, but still it happens in everything. You want to go check out a new grill before you order it. You want to check out whatever it might be, there's a lot of utility in that. So, and
returns too, like sometimes dealing with the posting and postage and everything can be a pain. Like sometimes you have to go print the label and whatever else. Whereas, you could probably, if you get something that you don't want, you can go to, an Amazon storefront and say, okay, here, I'm returning this product. And, oh, wait, since I'm already here, here's extra products you can buy or whatever, right? So that type of logic just opens up so many different channels for, potential increase in sales. So great insights, really. That's awesome. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you was related to advice you would give someone who's interested in investing in their first industrial property. Because a lot of people, their first foray into investing is the residential side. My first property was a fourplex. I house hacked a fourplex, right? And now we're looking to do more commercial stuff. But as far as those who are interested in investing in their first industrial property, what advice would you give?
I would say it depends on who you are. So if you're the type of person who's got let's say your portfolio is $10 million and you've got an extra $5 million in cash and the property you're looking at is $1 million, you've got a pretty good basis there where it's like, if this goes really bad, I'm still okay. Then I would get with a really good broker. And just try to understand the market and get with them, find someone who can help you find the right property, who can also help you lease the right property, introduce you to a property manager who can manage the property, and then just, have your team in place. If you're brand new and you don't have that, I would find somebody who's investing already, who has experience, and try to partner with them and just offer to help them in any way you can to be a part of the deal so you can learn it. Because, you look at a 100,000 square foot property, and in a cheap area, the roof's going to be $4 a foot. And that's going to be a $400,000 expense that if you didn't know that was coming, you could be upside down. And so it can be very, very expensive very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. And so, understanding that these aren't like duplexes. You're not going to put it out there on Craigslist and on Facebook Marketplace, and you're going to get 5 calls, and then next week it's rented. It could be 6 months, 8 months, a year before this thing gets rented. So there's just different mechanics that happen there. So if I'm somebody who is pretty savvy and just hasn't gotten into industrial, you probably could get away with just doing some research, connecting with brokers, making sure you've got a good team in place, and then tackling it. But if I'm brand new, I'm going to try to partner with somebody who's done it and been there, and just offer, say, look, I don't care what you need me to do. You need me to run flyers around. You need me to do, what do you need me to do? I'll do it. You need me to call on 100 buildings to try to find the next one? That's what I'll do, and that's how I would go about it. So.
Yeah, that's phenomenal advice, really. And it just goes to show, like, taking the initiative, because I mean, there's a lot of people out there that I talk to that are like, oh yeah, like would be nice to do this or would be nice to do that. But in reality, it takes effort, it takes initiative, and it takes consistency in a particular direction. So if you're someone who's listening right now that, you want to get into the industrial space, start providing value to people who are in that industry that you could work with in some capacity. And I think what you guys are doing also is really phenomenal, like building a platform and building a base where, people get to know who you are, kind of telling people about what you're looking for, building that personal brand. And maybe if you could touch on that a little bit, maybe how has that personal brand helped you guys on the investment front?
Yeah. So, it definitely, anytime you're out there and you can provide advice, there's obviously some level of authority that comes with that, if that makes sense. You put it out there, and the more you're out there and the more you're talking and the more you're sharing what you're doing, the more people are going to connect with you, and they're going to trust you, and they're just going to, they're going to understand that you're not trying to swindle them. You're just giving away free information. And that's a phenomenal way to build a brand. But I enjoy doing it just in general. I enjoy putting a brand out there where I'm just helping people and giving out content. It's just fun to do. And there is a side benefit there of you do establish yourself as an authority figure. So, we've got my YouTube channel that we're launching that we try to give, we interview folks and we try to give away as much content as we can and as much great free information. And there are a ton of podcasts. Your podcast is phenomenal. Your channel's phenomenal. So, when you build that personal brand, I think you kind of build that credibility with folks, and it does help significantly. When you go to talk to somebody and they've already watched 5 or 10 YouTube videos on you, I think it's almost like you already know somebody a little bit, right? You feel like you know them a little bit. And I think that helps so much. So building a personal brand is absolutely critical.
Yeah. And on the brokerage front, you could probably speak to this a bit. Like if you've ever talked with someone who's watched like 2 or 3 of your videos, that's a completely different conversation than if someone who you're just cold calling, and again, we've all done that. We've all cold called a lot. And it's one of those things where, having that personal brand to lean on, it can be a benefit to you. So.
Yeah, for sure. And in that combination, I think in a lot of ways, if you're brand new and you've not, or you're just starting out or you're in a new market, kind of those down and dirty, cold call, door knock, whatever, it kind of have to happen. But, I was talking with Tyler on the show the other day, and I'm trying to build as much of that evergreen content as I can too. That's just out there, that just people are finding and they can get access to. I'm in the process of building a new website that I hope to put, blog posts on and any podcasts, interviews that I've been on, things like that just constantly put content out there so people can get to know you before they get to know you.
Yeah. And if you do have any of those links, please let us know. We'd be happy to put them in the show description and everything else. So we definitely want to help you. Support you in your efforts. So
appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'm going to go completely different angle over here
okay.
and not talk about industrial. real estate for just a second here. One of the things we like to ask is a most impactful book that you've read in the past or here recently that's maybe changed the trajectory of your life a certain way. But.
So I already talked about the Rich Dad Poor Dad, but that it's kind of come in chapters. Like, so for my initial, like just changing my mindset, that was the one, it was that. And then, there's a series of books that I read kind of in succession that I kind of took to heart. It's where my scoreboard that I told you about that I use came from. And it's why I'm narrowing my focus just for industrial. And so the book, The One Thing, I don't know if you read that one or not, but it's spoke to me. What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it will make everything else, unnecessary or easier. And so that's that focusing question that constantly ask myself. So can I give you a few of them? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I read that one around the same time I read the 4 Disciplines of Execution. And so a lot of what I do is sort of around that 4 Disciplines of Execution, which kind of the 4 disciplines they spell out are: create a wildly important goal, focus on the lead measures, not the lag measures. The lead measures are things you can actually influence. So again, my scoreboard, things I can actually touch. And then the third is create that scoreboard, create a compelling scoreboard. And the fourth was to create a cadence of accountability. So we've got accountability partners, and I've got one with the person who I host our YouTube channel with and our group with. And then I've got a few at work that I have accountability meetings with. The book Traction was phenomenal. They have the Vision Traction Organizer, which is just a way for you to look 10 years into the future and work your way back to like quarters. And it's a phenomenal book. And then the book Atomic Habits. So those 4 are 4 that just kind of really solidified in my mind. Like, I need, I have this grand vision of like, I'm excited about it now, but now I need to study performance and study how do people perform? How do people who have achieved a lot day in and day out perform? And if you want to study performance, those 4 books are phenomenal.
100%. And the accountability piece is a huge one. Jeff and I actually just had a conversation about that this morning. We're a part of, we started a mastermind group with some local business owners, and we kind of just hold each other accountable to hitting our goals. And we were talking about ways to improve accountability within the group. And so Jeff and I were like throwing out around the idea of having like, because we're the 6 of us in the group. So it's like, okay, well, maybe we each month we say, okay, you're my accountability partner. And then we just kind of keep on top of each other over the course of a month to make sure we're hitting our 3 action items for the month. Yeah. So it's understated. I mean, accountability. I mean, you could put everything in place and have all the best intentions in the world, but if you don't hit your metrics, then you're kind of it defeats the purpose. So that's great insight. Yeah. Awesome. So first off, Logan, thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. And I mean, you provide a ton of great insights pertaining to, the industrial real estate market, to brokerage, to investing. I mean, really just a wide range of different topics we talked about. And as a fellow engineer, it's always great to converse with other engineers as well. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, we have this thing called the commercial real estate treasure chest. Essentially what it is it's a repository of resources that we make available to our audience that kind of talks about that could be, helpful PDFs, Excel sheets, or, anything really that's going to help our audience in their investing and brokerage or development careers. So if you don't mind, what did you have to bring us today?
Yeah, so I have a sheet that I've been using to track my metrics, which are essentially those lead measures we talked about. So things that I know will move the needle in my business. So it might be how many cold calls I make, how many networking events I go to, how many this, that, the other thing. And it's the things that I know will actually affect my my life, and it will affect positively my life. And so it's a spreadsheet that you fill out as you go. So every day it's okay, I made 3 cold calls, I made this, I did this, and the score updates, and you can see where you're at throughout the week of how well you're doing throughout the week. There's also a section where you can a second tab where you copy and paste throughout the week what your score was, and then you can track that over time to where you can see what your overall score was, but also in each of those categories how well you're performing. So, hey, on average, I'm only going to, I'm scoring 25% for networking meetings. I'm doing really bad there. I need to up the ante there. And so, yeah, I've got that. And then there's also I think I have a YouTube video on how to use it as well. So happy to share that content with you guys.
Yeah, I know that would be super helpful. I'm probably going to use it because I use an Excel sheet too, but it's definitely not that level of complexity. And then I have my handy dandy whiteboard here that I always have my 10 action items for the day, and try to utilize the eat that frog principle, where it's just like, take care of your biggest items in the morning. And then from there, you know, it's all downhill from there. So that's awesome, man. Really do appreciate that.
Sure, for sure.
Logan, I know both of us, just like Raphael said earlier, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Huge value. I know I learned a lot from you. But if someone wants to call you or get a hold of you, which avenue would you want them to contact you if they want more information or just want to learn more about you?
Yeah, they can email me. So my email is just Logan at Costello REI. That's our brokerage, COSTELLO REI. So Logan at CostelloREI.com. They can hit me up on Instagram at Logan.Hartle. You can check us out if you're on Facebook. We've got the True Commercial Real Estate Group. That's our meetup group on Facebook. Always looking for new members who want to meet up and learn about real estate. So yeah, any of those areas.
Is that a local or is that a virtual meetup?
It's all virtual, 100% virtual. We've got folks from Canada, California, Florida, all over the place. That's awesome. Yeah. And we do something similar too, where it's a commercial real estate 101 meetup. It's virtual and it's crazy. Like, especially with COVID, I feel like people just started transitioning to doing stuff online, and there was just a significant amount of growth. So that's awesome. And we'll go, if you don't mind sharing that with us, we'll go ahead and include that in the show notes as well. Both on you. If you're watching this on YouTube, obviously it's going to be in the description for YouTube. And then if you're watching this on a podcast medium, it's going to be in the description of the podcast. So awesome. Well, Logan, thank you so much for stopping by. It really does mean a lot to us. And obviously you were able to provide us a ton of great insights to our audience, and I'm sure they're going to gain a lot of value from it. For those of you guys who are listening in a podcast format, we would really appreciate it if you could drop us a 5-star review. It really helps with the algorithm and helps that more and more people can hear what we're talking about on this podcast, and leave us a note. Let us know what you want to hear next. I mean, we're always looking for great speakers. And if you guys are leaning towards a particular topic, we'd love to hear that. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps with the algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message and learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. So, all right. Well, thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you all next time.